huge suicide crisis in the world at large right now that, you know, people don't usually talk about. No, or I guess you don't really talk about to someone who then kills himself very often. Most people who talk about suicide do not do it, which therefore leads you to believe that, like, it's probably not a big deal. No, very, very big epidemic, very big problem that we're just not really thinking about too much as a whole. But the reason I'm raising all these things is not just to be like, did you know world equals different? But it's to say, I've been sleeping really well since then, and I've been kind of thinking about why that is. I've been trying to work out what the teachable lesson it is, and of course I mentioned this on stream, like, I think there's some really basic lessons that can help you sleep better. But, okay, the noise is coming from over here somewhere, I think. They must be on the other side of this wall. That is my high quality conclusion. Let's see if I'm correct by making a quick little staircase up. Gotta have one of these around here anyway, right? And let's see if there is. Yeah, we found him. Here's the last guy. Let's get him in a fun way, because I've got some arrows anyway. Some spares I need to use. Let's explicitly crossbow the guy to death while we talk about how well I've been sleeping. Because honestly, it is something I've been pretty happy with. I don't even know why I've been noticing it so much, but it's like, I've been going to, I guess actually, I've been sleeping well. I've been sleeping easily. I wake up and I feel like I haven't slept at all, which sucks. Hey, Master Trader. That's right, I am the Master of Trading now. That's my new title. But, yeah, it's something people don't talk about enough, and I've been kind of thinking about, like, so why have I been sleeping so well? I think it's because sleeping is easier when you're, like, emotionally fulfilled. And that sounds like, oh yeah, so you know what's great about me? I'm so good with emotions. They're all fulfilled right now. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think in terms of when I get to the point where I'm in bed, I now feel like my day is finished and complete. Which is, it's a really hard point to get to, especially when you're, if you do something where you can always be doing more, you know, for instance, say YouTube, but like, you know, like, there's lots of like tasks you could always just do more of, you could do better, you could do, you know, X, Y, Z. Of course that's true for, you know, so many things in the world. But, yeah, basically because it's really hard to know when you should sleep and when you're done with being awake and these sorts of things, you can kind of come to the conclusion sometimes and like, oh no, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And then you go to sleep just because like, well, I've hit the time where I've got to sleep, or I'm so tired I can't do anything more. Instead of hitting that point, recently I've just been like, okay, well, I know I've got to sleep at that time, so I'll finish doing this thing at this time, and then I'll have some time to kind of chill. I know I like looking at my phone before I sleep. I've got a semi-addiction in that way. You know, not even a semi-addiction. I think like full-on addicted to my phone, by the way. But like, just like that kind of basic step processing of just like, okay, well, I'm going to make time for things that I would like to do. Also, one of these guys will let me sell melons to him now, I believe. But he's standing too far back there, so we're gonna have to break the window. Oh, we already broke the window. Look what a forward-thinking man I am. But yeah, basically, and then we need to sell pumpkins to the other guy if we can manage it, which I totally can, just like this. Oh no, wrong guy! No, I wanted to select to you. Man back there looking at me jumping up and down, very confused. But yeah, I've been sleeping very well recently, and it's something I wonder, like, what is the reason that, like, sleeping is easier when you shut down your brain when you're not, like, emotionally craving things and stuff like that? Because the only other thing I can think of that's even close is, like, you know, crying yourself to sleep. It sounds like a weird joke. It sounds like a thing that people would actually just say. But when you're super sad about one thing, it's really easy to sleep too. You know, you cry or you whatever else. Admittedly, I think I've only ever cried myself to sleep once, which is sad. I felt like it'd be a... I want to know if it is like a common thing or if I just happened to sleep well that one night. But because I've heard of it being such a common thing, I've heard like, oh yeah, I just da-da-da-da-da, and then I cry myself to sleep. I've heard that as such a common thing that clearly crying yourself to sleep must be a real phenomenon in the real world for some real people. That is a conclusion you can draw. And therefore I wonder, like, you know what, if that's an easy thing too, maybe it's not the being emotionally fulfilled is what makes you sleep. Maybe it's just being emotionally focused. Like when in an average person, you know, I like to think of human beings as Sims because, you know, think of human beings as people, far too complex. But you know what isn't complex? The Sims. You got loads of bars, a bar for social, a bar for, you know, this, a bar, you know, a bar for all the different needs and wants in your life. And when all of those bars are filled, you know, you're a happy person. When all those bars aren't filled, you're unhappy. But like working out how to fill them and when and why, it's tricky in the modern world. There's lots of different things always tugging on different parts of your brain, being like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do that actually. No, you gotta do this. There's so many like tiny hooks here and there. Like,
dang it.
one of the things
I don't even know.
this makes me sound like a bad person, and you know, I think I just am, because I hate when people just expect that, like, hey, I would like to talk to you. You are obliged to talk to me back right now. Obviously, you know, probably get this more than normal because of the YouTube thing, but like, just being able to start a conversation randomly with no knowledge about what their schedule is or something like that, and then finding it rude when someone doesn't reply, it's like, no, you're not entitled to that much of my time to fill your social bar, especially if mine doesn't need filling in. In fact, I would say my social bar is like drained by talking to people
Stop
more
cheating!
than it's as an average person. But like, whoa, here, buddy, don't you assume that you can just, you know, like, leech in that kind of way, like have some of my stuff from me, because I think that's a rude assumption to make. I think another example would be like, oh yeah, just check your phone for 10 minutes while you do something. You could instead be working out, you know, your next big move, or whatever people say about things. You know, these are the sorts of... Okay, we can actually sell small melons while we're here. I should, but also I need to get back. So I'm going to take my buckets of cold with me, because I really don't need them here. Going to put my melons away. And oh, actually, I made a barrel for the melon. Oops. But yeah, we're gonna put this stuff away. We're gonna take our buckets of fish with us, and we're gonna come back to selling emeralds later, because it's a good trade. It's a good thing we need to do. It's a thing I do intend to do more often. In fact, actually, while we're here, I really want to just like put some torches in my underground farm, because I need these pumpkins to grow faster. These pumpkins are like key to getting to melon trades, which is what I really want to be doing. So we'll just do is we'll just put a little light in the tunnel, and we'll dig out some of the dirt, because I do want the dirt separately, because you know, who doesn't want a dirt? Who doesn't want a dirt? Like, it's such a... Dirt is one of those resources that's funny because it can't be crafted into anything, but it's always necessary for other things. There's a lot of things like that I tend to find in the world, in life in general. But yeah, so I've been watching, as well as considering,
what?
like, why I've been sleeping so well.
Oh,
because
no, I did it.
I think sleeping late is trying to cancel out. I think the reason that we need to be emotionally fulfilled as humans, or emotionally focused as humans to sleep, is because it's gonna be like a biological thing, right? If you're really torn and conflicted on something, you know, in nature, in the wild, a campfire, in a campfire. But like, also, let's sell these pumpkins before we go. I just realized, like, let's just do that. Let's just get these out of our way. Oops. Just so we don't have to deal with them anymore. But yeah, I've been kind of thinking about, like, isn't it a wacky thing to, like, if you tried to go to sleep in the wild because you had 10 things you had to focus on that you're just putting off and weren't doing, of course you would sleep badly there. No one would be surprised to find that that is a fact that is, you know, real and true. But yeah, it kind of seems like shocking when it's like, oh yeah, but also, if you want to do the same thing in the real world, if you think that you can just, you know, you've got all these different things you're focusing on, you can just put them off till tomorrow, that would be a terrible, terrible strategy. So the reason it doesn't work is because we need to be on a thing. It's like there's like a biological imperative to be like, sort out your issues and then you can sleep, or if you don't want to sort out your issues while you sleep, or sort out whatever's on your mind, because you know, there's always things in all of our minds. We're complicated, or most human beings are complicated creatures. Got things to do, things to work out, things to struggle with.
No, I didn't.
If you can fix those things, maybe you can go further than that. I don't know, it's something. But anyway, entirely unrelated to that, something that's been helping me sleep is I've gotten into a new TV show recently, and I feel like it's just good enough that I want to watch it a lot, but not so good that I'm neglecting everything else in my life to zoom through the seasons.
Dang it!
One of the this is a weird thing, like I find I like TV shows better when, like, I want to find the next, you know, Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or whatever else, like a show to absorb me more than I've ever been absorbed in my life. I kind of want that on one level, but another part of me, you know, actually really just wants... What happens if we put a bucket of cod out in the nether? Do you think the cod goes in the nether without the water? If so, you know, I have a great place we should put this. But anyway, so staying on point. I guess it won't live very long, but I want to try it anyway. Just to see, you know. Ah, would you know, you can in fact put cod in the nether if you really want to. We could probably keep it alive using cauldrons, maybe? Because that's water sources, technically. Whatever, we'll come back for this later, and we'll see how that goes. The answer is, by the way, very poor.
Oh, okay.
And there goes the cod. But yeah, so that was a pointless experiment, but I got a bucket from it, so that's nice. One of the this is a genius technique because you can buy buckets of fish from fishermen for like 3 emeralds, I want to say. It's not the most efficient way to make buckets, but if you wanted to, when you have that master trader effect, and if you have a lot of fishermen for other reasons anyway, you could buy buckets, and then you could take the buckets of fish, empty them out in the nether, and then you get a little bit of fish, which you could then sell back to the villager, and also you get empty buckets, without needing to like put the water in the ocean or something. So there we go, pro tips of Toy Cat. Bad pro tips of Toy Cat, pro tips of Toy Cat nonetheless. I think it's probably better just to use the cod for something you really want to use it on. But that's just me personally living my wacky license.
So hectic!
But yeah, so I've been watching You recently. It's a TV show that I really do think is that perfect gap of like, I don't want to destroy my life to watch this, but also I want to watch this. I'm excited when I see new plot developments. It just had a new season, and it was actually the first recommendation for a show that I took and actually went through it in a very long time. Also, there seems to be like, let's not think
No
about it
one
too
can
much.
go that fast.
Let's light it up just so we don't. Yeah, there's like full on like a little area up there. You know, I should deal with it, but I won't. What I've been enjoying recently, it's like it follows a sociopath. It's probably more than a sociopath, but it follows like a sociopath.
How?
Gives you the inside of their mind,
What?
and it proves a really interesting point about
But I
human
didn't
condition
fall.
we always forget about,
I fall
which is people
didn't
like to
fall
believe good and evil are objective, but they're not. And obviously, most people can figure that out fairly quickly. Like, oh yeah, well, there's actually lots of shades of grey in between. It turns out that there aren't just people who agree with me and evil people, although some people, sadly, social media is a big example of like, it pushes out the worst in people just thinking that all the time, and you see it a lot, and it's always a little bit uncomfortable, but maybe that's just me.
Wow.
But yeah, so I find that
This
You's
video
pretty
is
interesting because it puts you
unavailable.
in the head of someone who sometimes does bad things. You know, they mostly do good things, except when they don't, and then they do pretty bad things. I mean, you know, I would say morally questionable, if not bad. But yeah, when you're put like in the mind of someone doing these sorts of things, they all seem really justifiable. Like, I mean, sure he did super bad thing X or pretty bad thing Y, but I mean he did it for love. Badly. Social media is a big example. But like, you know, it pushes out the worst in people just and then it seems kind of like, always a little bit uncomfortable. Oh, another change I've been wanting to make here is I've decided like, yeah, so I find that like so far
video
pretty
is
interesting because I'm going to expand this little hallway up here to go one block someone who sometimes does. So actually we can use the mostly do good things, except when they don't. And then this won't look pretty bad things. I mean, you know, I would say plan at least morally questionable. It goes well bad. But yeah, basically, when you put like in the mind of someone, I do these sorts of things. They all seem really just now gonna. Sure, he did entirely destroy. But that's bad. You know, I'll dig up pretty bad. I'll have a little why secret room. But I mean, he did it for. It'll be wonderful. In fact, I could just dig an entire. Social media is a big example. But like, you know, it pushes out the worst in people, and it's a really good. Then it seems kind of like always a little judge others by. Oh, another change I've been wanting to make here is I've decided like, yeah, so and you see it even in the show like someone's really interesting because I'm going to expand this little way up to go one block someone who sometimes does. So actually, you know, they cheat on someone even except when they had a good reason, even though they cheat. You know, even though it was a good thing overall, and they had, you know, they were like messed up and this and that. You're like, oh, this absolute monster. Can't believe they cheat on our main man, the protagonist. Very bad person, by the way. Pretty bad. As proven by fans in the show. You know, I would say morally it's really interesting to see. But yeah, basically, even when you put like with good storytelling, they all kind of just get that same point. But that's bad. You know, and our self-spire intentions. I'll dig up. You can do that in TV secret room. But I mean, he did it. It'll be one in the perspective. In fact, just dig is a big off. But like, you know, it pushes out the worst off, and it's really good. Then it seems by putting always a little judge others. Oh, another change I've been wanting to make here is I've decided. Yeah, so weird that someone in the show like someone who is the level of bad of someone who sometimes does. So actually, even though it was a good thing overall, and they messed up and this and that, you're like, oh, this absolute monster. I can't believe they cheat on our main man, the protagonist. Very bad person, pretty bad. As proven by fans. But morally, it's really interesting to see.
So yeah, you want to keep playing
Yeah,
my
we like with
storyteller.
Yeah, I totally.
They
all
kind of
of
just
them
get.
That's
Same
surely
thing.
did.
Like,
Look at that.
The past. We can see the past.
Yep. Yeah, it's lagging because it's 30 TPS, which means it's 30 seconds behind. That is
Looks like you
30,
died.
100,
Yeah.
no, 1,800
You'll
Minecraft.
never understand my true meaning to this. Ah.
What? How'd you do it that fast?
I sound cheating. It's literally just a design flaw. You up the damn bulge. It shouldn't beat you up the damn. It shouldn't beat you up. The past.
Programmer removes
Past. What?
Oh, this
No!
because
This
it's
is cheating!
TPS, which means it's 30 seconds behind. That is 30 TPS. 100 is
Yeah.
1,800
You'll
Minecraft.
never understand my true meaning to this. Ah. You'll never understand my true meaning to this. Ah.
What? How'd you do it that fast?
I sound cheating. Do you want to join AJ's call?
Okay.
Alright, join AJ.
I don't know. Oh wait, Sully?
Yeah, the real.
Oh, one of Bim's Reddit friends.
Well, he's a.
I met him in like 2016. Me and Sherman.
Bim, I'm way better than you at PvP.
Come join us, AJ.
No, I'm about to defeat a boss in PvP. I'm about to fight like the Gnome King guy. No, it's called.
What are you playing right now, AJ?
He's at home. Crash.
Go on the sewer pipe.
AJ's playing the Plants vs Zombies. AJ,
I can't hear you over Nick's obsessively loud mic. Hey, where's the freaking hard guy? Alright, there he is. I don't want you that guy, I want the Guardian! Let me hit you, Guardian! I'm trying to hit a Guardian right now, if you don't mind.
Nicholas, why do you have to erase us?
Where's the panel? Here it is. Alright, we're dealing with some damage.
I'll erase you code 3.
Dude, I'm getting some damage off this guy. Alright, that doesn't... Oh wait, no, it still does.
AJ, you
No longer... Where's Blippi Boy?
Yeah, Sean.
Wanna play some Minecraft games with me again?
You have to turn off your microphone.
Turn off your microphones, not
Say that again, Sean.
turn off that belongings. But turn down your mic intensity.
Heal me. I'm trying to freaking stop knocking me back, you faggots. No, fuck off. Fuck's sake. Fuck off.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Fuck off.
Yeah, well, Sean.
Rage.
Calm down, Rachel.
Heal up. This fucking dog thing.
No swearing on my Discord call.
Wait, you just started in front of me.
Alright, give me to the kitchen bowl. Get to the chopper. Activate the chopper. Right, get over here. Come on, Wuss. Come on, yeah. How do you like it now? Yeah, now how does it feel to actually have damage dealt to you? I regret this.
So Nick, are you coming to play?
Where's the cliff guard?
Yeah, I'll try, Sean.
Okay.
This battle's actually hard.
Alright, I got a scar.
Can we go to the minigame mashup? Can we go to the minigame mashup
Open
instead?
the door.
Chopper activated. Oh, it's not letting me do damage anymore. Damn it, this is so hard. It's like literally impossible. This is literally impossible.
Nicholas, when she get on Minecraft, join the minigame mashup one.
What did you say, Sean?
When you get on Minecraft, join the minigame mashup that's Bim's on.
Okay.
Why does my Minecraft run smoother than my screen does?
We're waiting for Nick.
Nick, check this out.
What do I be?
I know it's minigames though.
So the invite code should be there, right?
Well, pretty nice. Rack to wash
Yep, do it.
Alright, this is good, this is good. Perfect, actually.
Benny, you live?
Yeah, I'm live.
Yeah, I just watched the live stream.
Boss.
But it's good.